Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I'm really looking forward to today's call. Well, I always say I'm really looking forward. I'm always looking forward to all these conversations that we have on the Post Shift, especially today. This actually came out. I was talking to Jason in the green room before I went live, and this actually came out of, I think it was a LinkedIn post or something of the sort, that someone talked about AI and how can you use that in the hospitality industry. I'm really looking forward to deep diving on this one, because I think that it's something that it's still so new to people, that a lot of people just don't know how to use it. And there we go. And so I'm looking forward to talking to Jason, because he is a systems first sort of person, and deep diving into AI and the hospitality industry. How are you this morning, buddy?
Hey, good morning or afternoon. Thanks for having me, Shawn.
Yeah. So for everybody watching, if you're watching and you have a question, you can put it up on whatever platform you think. Jason reminded me of that, and it will come up on a chat feature for the live stream, and we can answer questions on the way through. So Jason, for everybody out there who is just tuning in, how did you get your start in the industry, and what's your backstory?
I started bartending 20 years ago, 20 years ago, and kind of rose through the ranks in New York City's bars. My last shift was at Death & Company, I think in 2010 or so, 2009. I kind of did matriculated into bar consulting, recipe development, staff training, stuff like that. I was the president of USBG in New York for a couple of years. That was during Hurricane Sandy. And then fast forward to just before COVID, I was operations director, or I was an operations consultant for the Campari Academy. And then COVID hit. Everybody lost their minds. I think that's the last time I was on the podcast. Thanks again for having me. I was just sitting in a room with a computer, being like, okay, these are much bigger problems that we have to solve, much bigger problems. And so there's a development of software as a service and platforms as a service. And then that has since evolved in 2024 to be AI and automation, heavily AI and automated driven. And so what we're doing is, my company is called Kinetic Management Systems. What we do is we solve these problems that are typically not being solved because people are short staffed. I mean, the reality is at least in the States, 80% are going to fail over 5 years, 67% over in the first year. And so in the consumer psychology has changed considerably. The way that they make decisions is radically different than it was even a couple of years ago. So what we're doing is we're building systems that are automated and empowered by AI that help you communicate with your customers at scale in a way that they want to be communicated with. They don't want it now, they want it right now. And if they're communicating with you on any level, then their intent is extremely high. And so you have to strike while the iron's hot. And AI is kind of a jetpack that allows you to empower those conversations at scale, even if you're not there.
That's awesome. Yeah, as I was saying, the thing is, someone was, and even my wife, when I started talking about Chat GPT and how it's evolved for me, because I wrote a SOP, like a 4-day SOP for training at Clive's, and if you're very specific, can give you very specific answers. And I was mentioning this to my wife. She works at a law firm, and she was like, I don't think that's going to help me with my day-to-day. And then she was talking about it to her bosses, and then her boss is like, I think you should start researching how AI can help law firms right now. And she's like, damn it, Soole, screwed me over. But the comment came out of someone on LinkedIn, I think it was LinkedIn or Facebook, and someone was like, I don't know how AI is going to help us in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, it's just there's typically skepticism when new tools come out, and AI is garbage in, garbage out. So pretend that you have an employee that's never been trained before. It's a newborn baby, and you say, "Solve my problem." What's going to happen? They're going to be like, "Boo boo gaga boo boo," and then nothing's going to happen. But if you say, "You are a 20-year veteran in restaurant marketing, and you have all the insights of Yuval Harari, Jordan Peterson, Alex Hormozi, Russell Brunson, Jay Abraham, and I would like you to ask me 20 questions, one at a time, about how to solve my individual problems. And then it'll say, question number one, what's bothering you right now? What's keeping you up at night? It's something along those lines. I mean, it's an AI, so it's going to ask you probably broader questions and then narrow it down to very specific things. And then once it completely understands what your problem is, then you can ask it things like, I would like you to write a press release around this, understanding what you know about this. I would like you to write an Instagram post about this, and it'll give you in great detail. So, and it gets even crazier than that. So like, what I've been doing with my stuff is like, I'll do like talking head videos where I'll just like talk into a camera, put it on YouTube or something like that. Then I'll run that through an AI and then transcribe it, and it'll understand how I speak, right? And so if you add that as a file to that chat that understands the problem, then it'll start outputting things in your voice as you would be speaking.
It's been crazy because I literally like, I use it a lot for interview questions. So I say, like, for the podcast, for structure, like, I'm interviewing such and such about such and such for the Post Shift podcast. Can you do it in the tone of Shawn Soole? And it will write me questions how I talk, like little anecdotes that I would never even remember, that it's somewhere along the lines it's read it. So what was the deep dive? Because like, when we talked before, you were sort of into this consulting sort of section when it was the pandemic and everything. What was the driver outside the pandemic that was like really knuckle down on systems and how to quantify and make everything tangible? Because I think in our industry, a lot of the times it's sort of like, I have a system for this, and it's so intangible and so quantifiable that you go, okay, well, it's a system, but you don't really have it on paper. What was the driver that made you like get really knuckle down and like put it into a package?
Well, as the technology has evolved, there have been new capabilities that are launched every single day. And so when you reverse engineer the problem about, like, specifically with restaurants, you're like, okay, cool. Well, how do I become more discoverable? How do people find me? How do I influence the decision to purchase one way or another, or book a reservation, whatever it is? And so this is kind of entering into the field of reputation management, because people are not going to, like, the number one driver is people asking their friends, for sure. They're asking their friends where they should go, where they want to meet. The second step is they're looking on Google Maps or doing a search. And increasingly, ChatGPT is beginning to replace typical search engines because it's more contextual and it understands you better. So Google is terrified of that. But like, as far as reputation management is concerned, like, your reputation or how you're perceived to the world at large is typically and succinctly put up into a star rating on a Google Maps hit. And that is typically how people find stuff. We've been trained to do this for years and years and years. Amazon has trained us at scale to look at these reviews, ratings, and comments and help us decide. This is called social proof, and it's an element of behavioral economics and social psychology. And so, like, we've been trained over the years to look at reviews, and then we are outsourcing our own decision. We're being relieved of the burden of choice by co-opting other people's, a stranger's review. And so Gallup did a poll recently that reinforced a previous survey, and it turns out that for every star rating that you're down or up is between a 5 to 9% in actual revenue. So if you're not considering your online reputation, it's like, that's kind of where I would start. So if you're looking at an empty dining room, you're like, okay, there's nobody in here. I'd be like, why is that? Right. And it's typically because you're not being not discoverable. And that typically starts with search engine optimization and with just rigging the game with reputation management, asking as many people as you can for a review. Most people will do the right thing. They'll give you a 5-star review. Some people will be assholes and they'll give you a 1-star review, and that's just what you got to do. But where AI comes in and automation comes in is when we're sending personalized requests saying, hey, would it be too much to ask? And this is a carefully crafted message, by the way. Would it be too much to ask for you to give us honest feedback on your experience with us, right? And then if you're getting a lot of those, then we can actually respond to those with an AI, so that you're always responding to reviews. Because people often don't understand is that The reviews, especially the negative review, the responses to reviews, especially the negative reviews, is just as important as the response to the positive reviews. And these are all being indexed by search engines, by the largest search engine in the world. Second largest, by the way, is YouTube.
YouTube.
So YouTube, yeah, and I think it's followed by third or fourth by Amazon. So like this is what you do if you're like looking at an empty room.
Interesting. And so if you're a general manager or an operator out there right now listening to this conversation and they're like, well, again, like the start of the conversation is like, I don't see where it fits in. What are like the top 3 things that you would say are the things that you need to implement using AI into the hospitality industry to make your life a little bit easier?
Okay, so if you're doing any kind of marketing, and typically the default answer is Instagram, I would connect a chat widget, a conversation AI, to your Instagram page, and that will say anytime you get DM'd or mentioned or tagged, it'll respond within a certain amount of time saying, hey, thanks for the love. Would you like to join our loyalty program? Would you like to join the Bub Club or the Whiskey Team or whatever it's called? And then the object of that game. So the AI will say, thanks for the love. Would you like to join the thing? Yes or no? And we'll read the intent, positive or negative. This is what my company does, by the way. So we'll read the intent, whether it's a positive intent, yeah, sure, okay, or a negative intent, like no, thank you, nope, nah, and then we say, just thank you for your business. We'd love to have you back. And then 23 hours later, it says, hey, would you like to leave us a review? Because if they're tagging you in a restaurant post, chances are they went there. And so that's one way that we're listening. Another way that we're listening is we replace the phone numbers of every one of our clients. And don't worry, it just passes through to your existing landline. But on the way in, we're capturing that data as a contact in your database. So we're getting update. Your database is constantly being updated. And what we're saying is when the phone rings, we automatically text them back saying, hey, sorry, we missed your call. Is there anything I can help you with? And so the AI has read your entire website, every derivative of your website. We even train it on the reviews, and it will deliver the answer. And spoiler alert, it's typically only five questions. How do I get there? I left something there. What do you have that's gluten-free? That kind of stuff. And so if you train it on those basic 5 questions, and then especially if you're sub $1.5 million gross revenue operator, that's like effectively replacing an employee. We do recommend that, I do recommend my clients have somebody that's assigned to me that I can work with, that does have some sort of a marketing focus. But just these basic things are typically game changers. And then the third thing is automated review management. Now, once we master those basic things, then we start listening on a different level. So once we have people in our database that we're constantly growing our database, and we're able to market and send offers to people and send them loyalty incentives, then we start doing things like listening for feedback. We're listening for feedback from the staff via what we call a Q12 survey. It's also a Gallup product. So it's 12 questions that are specifically and carefully worded to understand how much your staff likes working with you. And then for the guest facing one, it's called an NPS survey, Net Promoter Score. And that's on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely would you be to recommend us to somebody else? And then as these people matriculate through the system and they gain loyalty, then we start offering secret shopper programs. So you're getting actual real feedback from people. Because a very common misconception, I'm a management consultant, so I try to think big picture and then solve one small problem at a time. But one of the biggest things, aside from just basic business fundamentals and not understanding the economics of your business, is that they're just not listening to people. They're just not listening to the only important constituencies in your business, which is your staff and your customers. And a close third is management. But customers first, staff, and then management. And so you want to make sure that you understand what that sentiment is at all times. And so we visualize this and graph it as trends so that people can see exactly what's happening. But yeah, it seems so basic in 101, but most of the problems that I solve are extremely boring. Yeah.
They always are. So
Yeah.
with that, hospitality, I think, has always been a very hands-on, like tactile touch sort of thing. Do you think that AI sort of takes away from that human connection a little bit when it comes to like those three things we just talked about?
Yeah, so I mean, this is like the AI is getting better. I mean, they're
Mm,
releasing new models all the time, and ChatGPT is not the only one. There's also Gemini. There's also like shit, I forget what the other one was, but there's like a ton of them, and they're getting better and better and better. And again, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you
mhm,
train it on your voice and how you'd like to respond to people, then it will do just that. It's a computer. It does only and exactly what you tell it to do. But yeah, no, the way that I use AI on behalf of my clients is more to do what needs to be done that they typically can't do. So if you go to a place like 11 Madison Park, they have people that are called dream weavers, right? And their job is to understand the guests before they show up.
mhm.
So I remember eating there one time, and we were with somebody else. We were with some people, and they had little gift wrapped boxes of with like it wasn't needlepoint, but it was like sketches or like a 3D print of their dog from that they got from Instagram. It was like this close. It was this close to being creepy as shit. I thought I was going to file a restraining order, um, but they did it in a way that was obviously enchanting, and we just loved it. But
Mhm,
the reality is that everybody's favorite word is their own name,
mhm.
and everybody wants what they want right now, or they're going to immediately move to the next place. So, based on what their preference is, one could also argue that you're better serving them by understanding them better.
Yeah, the Dream Weavers at 11 Madison Park are very. It's a that's a whole chapter in the book, and it's like just the amount of research they do just on the guest who's coming and like possibly who else is coming, and it is next level hospitality.
hmm But I mean, but they're also, you're also their check average is like $1,000, and
Yeah.
so like where does that leave the person that's trying to sell that's barely making it serving $12 cocktails? This is where AI and automation and technology comes in, is because it can be an extension of yourself, and it doesn't get hangovers.
Mhm.
It's never going to be a bridesmaid at somebody's wedding. It never gets sick.
Right.
And so we're not talking about the exception here. We're not talking
Mhm.
about like if you should do it. It is the rule. You are going to have to do it. You know, I would love for I would love for you guys to do it with me, but somebody's gonna have to do this for you. Like
Yeah.
it's like it is. You cannot unring this bell. It is not going backwards. It is only going forwards.
So we talked about reputation management, and also like how insanely busy most operators are on a day-to-day basis. As I mentioned earlier, like we were training new people. We don't have a lot of turnover at the bar, so it's like there's times when I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's the first time we're hiring someone new in almost 10 months, 12 months. I want to sort of put this down on paper. And I literally went to ChatGPT and I was like, can you please write me a 4-day training program for a server who works at Classic Lounge, making sure that they learn about the food expo, like as you said, garbage in, garbage out. And it wrote me something that was pretty spot on. Few edits here and there, but pretty spot on. And when I mentioned to someone, they're like, why would you just write that yourself? And I was like, I don't have time. I just wanted to plug it in and see what it comes out. If it was crap, I was going to go, okay, well, I'll have to write it myself. But it was not in any way, shape, or form. It was perfect. So for bar owners operators, like reputation management's one little nice pillar to like sort of pinch off. Where do you see IA being integrated into like a day-to-day operations sort of thing for an operator who is completely overwhelmed? Something to make their life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts to my thoughts on that. One of them is that most of my clients in the very beginning are typically working on the wrong things that don't move the needle for them, or they're not balancing the things. They're not balancing the important at the altar of the urgent. So they're only working on urgent things that are not going to move their business forward in the long run. So I recommend budgeting your time. Um, Second of all is you can go to Jason's Free Tools right now, jasonsfreetools.com right now, and see examples of some publicly available GPTs that I've created that do things like write press releases, write Instagram posts, write SOPs. I even put a therapist on there just because I was kind of fooling around. But the output, the results. I heard somebody say something. It was a writer who was just like, who reposted a thing that said, if it's not important enough to write, it's not important enough to read. And this is true. If the AI, especially for documentation and systems and process system and process implementation, like it'll get you like 80% there, but you have to make things sticky by telling stories. And the AI is not going to know your stories. And so there's internal storytelling, like how you communicate with your team. And then there's external storytelling, which is how you tell the world about what you're doing. People, AI is not going to replace the emotional connection. And it's not going to artificially create how you make somebody feel. And so, when you're writing these documents, you are an excellent leader. For instance, just the fact that you have people that stay with you for a long time means that you are investing a lot in them, and that means time. But going back to my original thought about this is that that is where your investment should be, is in your people. The systems, the software, the AI, and stuff like that. That is a furtherance of a strategy. It's not a strategy itself.
So talking about staff turnover being massive in the industry, a friend of mine recently showed me a platform called Notion, and Notion seems to be like next level, like the way like the SOPs and recipes and everything. Like I still just feel like sometimes, and we're both older in the industry, I feel like we're older in the. I was talking to a gentleman this morning on a Zoom call, and I was like, he doesn't have social media. He doesn't deal with AI. It's just, and we're at the same age. It's like, well, I don't sort of stay relevant to those things. Like, how do you overcome this sort of old stalwart mentality of like, no, I still use Excel. I still use these tools to do my job. How do you, as a consultant, sort of push through that barrier?
I typically don't. I mean, if they don't see the value in what I'm bringing to the table, then chances are they're not going to feel like they made a good investment anyways. I mean, I've got tangible results. I've got data. I know what I do. There is a place in the world for the neighborhood bar that doesn't do any of these things, that just really focuses on individual attention and individual community building. And that's great. That's great. The stuff that I do is for more ambitious people that want to scale. And that's the gratification for me, is being able to hire more people, have a bigger community, and really drive community engagement and being a meaningful part of your community. That's what gets me up out of bed. That's what keeps me up at night too. And so it's not for everybody, but if you are not employing things that communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with, how they want to be communicated with, you are going to be irrelevant. A tree that falls in the woods and nobody's there to see it does not make a sound. And it's ruthless out there. It's ruthless out there. And I just feel bad because they're going to have hard conversations with their friends, family, investors, and closing is much harder than opening. And most of the time, from what I've seen, especially with independent bars or restaurants, like sub 80 seats, sub $1.5 million in revenue, they just don't have a simple answer to a very simple question. How are you going to get people in here? But I mean, thankfully, the playing field has evened out. The same basic stuff that Applebee's, Chili's, Domino's uses is accessible to anybody now because of software as a service, and then high value consultants like myself.
Well, I think that's the hardest things. I had a couple of meetings this week about with some youngsters who want business plans and stuff like that. I'm like, guys, like, there's business plans. Just type in business plan for a bar online and you can find a million examples of how to lay it out. I've sent through a few boilerplates, that sort of thing. But going back to systems, like what's the one area that you see still to this day that most bars overlook and how can they fix it?
The first 100 days.
Mm.
The first thing that came to mind is the first 100 days of somebody that works with you. First of all, you should always be recruiting, always. You should always be incentivizing your staff for recommending people. And then you should treat your staff extremely well, but that, for me, that the understanding of what the first 100 days looks like and what the investment that you're making in your staff should be crystal clear. And that, when all things are being equal, in New York or in the States, like everybody's typically on minimum wage, sometimes a little higher if you have a little bit more responsibility, but it's typically minimum wage. And so your income depends on how happy the customers are. And so if all things are equal, then you're competing with the places that are busier. The places that are typically busier are either doing better marketing, or they just have like incredible networks, or they have me on their team, for instance. But you're competing for those same people, those same employees, and that pool is shrinking. So part of a value that you're offering your staff is that you're going to invest heavily in their training, so that whatever it is that they decide to do in their career, they will always have that knowledge and that skill with them. So the first 100 days is typically the most important. This is why we implement some HR systems that are largely automated, that reminds you of when birthdays are, reminds you of work anniversaries and stuff like that. But it also automates the learning management process of the first 100 days. And so when, for instance, so after the recruiting piece drops off, and then that turns into the onboarding piece. And that's when the learning management starts, where they get drip fed on a day-to-day basis, a little piece of content, like 3 to 5 minutes of consumable content that they clock in and watch. And that becomes part of an online discussion in an online community among the staff. And this is the substance of your pre-shift, right? And so the pre-shift is vitally important. I don't care what kind of bar it is. Everybody should be on the same page about what's going on in the business. And, and then likewise the post-shift. So we have post-shift, like you scan a little QR code, and then it asks you a couple of very simple, basic questions. It takes about 3 minutes to do. That says what happened on the shift, who should be recognized. It's all very positive reinforcement based. You ever seen there's this guy that lives in my building, and he just like shouts at his dog all day. And that poor dog is a dog. Your team is not that, and they can and will evaporate on you. And there's nothing that smells worse than a staff member that hates their job. And so your best marketing, your best in-store marketing is by just saying, like, here's what we expect of you. Here's what doing a great job looks like. Here's how to grow in this company. Here's what we want to invest in you, and just making it crystal clear, like always having something to look forward to.
Do you think I've been preaching this since the post-pandemic, because during the pandemic, obviously we had an opportunity to reset as an industry, especially for staff retention and things like. For me personally, we spend close to 1% of our gross sales on training for staff. So like actual proper, like tangible certification courses, so that I'm building I'm helping them build their resume, and that's the thing. I always laugh and joke and say I want to do so much training that they're unhireable by anybody else because they cost too much, so they have to stay.
It's amazing.
But from an industry point of view, and you've got a much wider reach than I do. Do you think we did reset after the pandemic? Because I don't think we did, and I still think we have this sort of turn and burn mentality in our industry of like, oh, if we can't get you to do it, we'll find someone else. And as you said, the pool is shrinking. Like the next generation doesn't want to do the 10, 12 hours, doesn't want to be on their feet for that long. Do you think that we haven't necessarily reset this mentality that we had before the pandemic?
I do agree with you that the pool is shrinking. I think that the biggest need right now is for career-minded bartenders and servers, and that need is not being met by the employers because they're not offering a clear matriculation plan, like a clear way to advance. And so, I was talking to somebody who's he runs a couple hotels around the world, and he said that it's not the frontline staff that he's missing right now. It's the middle managers, it's the AGMs, it's the beverage directors, it's those people that want a little bit more responsibility. Now, I remember back in the old days when I was bartending, I was like, I loved my job because I would have a great shift or I would have a shitty shift. But either way, I could walk away and forget about it, not have to think about it. And there was no emails, there was no text messages. It was just like, you're here, you work, you do your thing, and then go and then disappear. So my understanding from the feedback that I got from my clients is that the pool is dwindling considerably, but I don't think that that's the problem. I think that giving people a reason to want to do it. I think that there's a gene that we all have that gives us, this kind of service hospitality. I mean, I'm in, I could go much, much, much deeper on that because, the way we were raised, I believe, influences how our choices that made us decide to be in hospitality. And so a lot of people that are of age to do the frontline work don't have the same vision for their careers as we did. I remember wanting to be a bartender since I was like 7. I was like, that looks like a fun job. That's what I want to do. I just don't think that conversation is happening in anybody's mind right now.
That's fair. So with AI becoming so, we've talked about AI becoming so prevalent in the industry, and if they don't hire someone like yourself to sort of implement that correctly, is there massive pitfalls to like just thinking that it's a quick fix? Like, I'm just going to do, like as you said, Instagram widget. I'm just going to plug that in without really understanding. I always find like this is people in general. If it's an easier fix and a quick fix, they're going to go down that route instead of actually researching it, figuring out exactly how to make it work before implementing it. What are the big pitfalls if they don't hire someone like you as an operator, just thinking that plugging AI into everything is going to make everything better?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like I'll tell you what software I use. It's called High Level, and if you want to use that, the technology is available to you, right? To anybody. If you, it should be used strategically, not tactically, right? So the object of the game has to be very clear. I want more people here. I want people to enjoy themselves more. I want to get feedback from my guests so they understand, so we understand what we can give them more of. But I think that taking a few moments, this is unfortunate that especially with founder-led brands, owner-operators, that they aren't able to spend a lot of time thinking like, what's the real problem here? What's really going on here? And then as you plug these holes with tactical things like software and AI and automation, that gives you a little bit more oxygen to breathe. But it is not a replacement for a good strategy.
Yeah, I find it's sort of like an analogy of a factory broke down and their boiler broke down and they were trying to fix it themselves for hours and days and days, and they finally called an expert in. Expert comes in, and then it gets a massive bill, and they're like, "Well, why is the bill so big?" It's like, "Well, I knew where to hit. I knew what to hit to fix it."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is basic. It really is very simple. But again, it's the urgent typically trumps the important. And it's, I can understand. I was a bar owner for 6 minutes, and I understand it's like I had no money, so like when things broke, I had to go fix it. Or I mean, thankfully my team was amazing. My partners were amazing because I had just had a baby when I owned a bar. And yeah, the truth is that the things that you need to get done will not all be able to be done by you, and nor should they be. I mean, our greatest accomplishments are going to come through other people, whether that's your plumber or your coach or your bartenders. That is where your money comes from. Because if you own a bar and you're constantly putting out fires, then you just can't put out all the fires at the same time. You have to hire people that can do things for you, and that is the only way that you're going to be able to scale, unless you have like 20 seats in your bar or something like that.
But then you're not making money. So
and then you're not making money.
Yeah. What's the biggest innovation in bar operations, technology, systems, or something we even thought of yet in the next 6 to 12 months?
What I'm looking forward to is individualized lead nurturing. So what we're doing right now is we're developing a system that that listens to people. I mean, like as an industry, it's going to get fucking wild, right? So they're going to start looking at people's facial expressions, their tonality, their cadence, and they're going to start recommending things based on how you interact. Amazon is already doing this. If you've ever seen Rufus, it'll start. It'll kind of read what you're saying and then respond in a similar tone. With us, what we're doing is we are starting to engage databases of clients. We're testing this out now, but we're engaging databases of clients, and then based on response or non-response, we are automating the follow-up. And then depending on the level of how cold or how fallow the lead is, then we are bumping up the incentives and giving them more and more reasons to come back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it
easy? It's 3 times. But once they come to your place 3 times, it's a habit.
Yeah, because it's still old world thinking with just new technology. Like we always used to say, like for reviews before the review sites and everything, like if someone has a bad experience, they're going to tell 6 people. If they have a good experience, they're going to tell 1. And so I think it's just old. It's the same old world mentality as we're talking about, like the older generation, well, us and the old generation, sort of not adapting to technology the way it is. I just, what was it the other day? Someone was mentioning AI and that sort of thing. And I said, guys, like every time something new comes out, there's always someone demonizing it. Parents demonize social media for their kids. I'm like, yes, but there was articles when the kaleidoscope became popular that the kaleidoscope was going to rot kids' brains because they were just sitting there on the kaleidoscope twisting to make these different shapes and colors. And like everything always gets demonized for some reason when it's always brand new.
Right, and it's kind of bizarre thinking because you're demonizing this particular technology, but your customers are embracing it. They love it. And why do you care what other people think? Like you should be focusing on your business and your customers and your staff. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It really doesn't. It matters what your customer, except for your customers and your staff. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, I see a lot more search engines going towards social media as well. I've seen Facebook and Instagram sort of leaning towards that in the search bar now. Is like if you type in cocktails in Victoria, you're going to get the top accounts that are sort of pushing that mentality through social media. So yeah, I do agree. A lot of people are using Facebook and Instagram way more as a search engine.
Yeah, so like people just fundamentally don't understand what the internet does. The internet trains people on behaviors, psychology, trains them on how to buy things, trains them how to think about things. And if you use the internet, basically you are being influenced. You are being influenced. And we have been trained to use the internet to relieve us of the burden of choice for decades now. And if you think that you look anywhere similar to your customer, then you are not thinking very far ahead. Your customer does not look like you. Your customer hasn't discovered what they like yet.
Wow. So for bartenders and owners listening, what's one piece of advice you'd give them to start improving their operations today? Doesn't need to be AI or anything, like just something that you're like, if someone's sitting there underwater and they're just like, I don't know what to do, what's the one piece of advice for you that you would give them to step forward?
For bartenders, I would say
Bartenders,
introduce
bar
yourself.
owners, everything.
Yeah. When you greet people, it's much easier to get people back than it is to get them in for the first time. And it's much more profitable as well. So when you greet people, introduce yourself by name. And with the bill, give them a gift. Could be a Hershey's Kiss, could be anything. Give them a gift. That will increase your check average. It'll create, it's a behavioral economics consideration called reciprocity. Give them something. It's why when you go to buy a car, they're gonna put a bottle of water in your hand, and then you're gonna feel this kind of subconscious burden, like mandate. You're gonna feel required to reciprocate. So introduce yourself by name. That personalizes the experience, and then give them a gift. Give them something. Dead Rabbit is the master of this, by the way. Dead Rabbit, they give everybody who walks into the parlor gets an Amuse. And that tells the guest couple of things, right? So the guest understands a couple of different things. One, stuff is fucking good here, right? Two, they have this kind of like they're likely going to spend more. And three, it's a good way to use up stock that you can't use, and also make partnership deals. But yeah, reciprocity is extremely powerful. People do not like it's like this is why the VA, the Veterans Association of America, Veterans Administration of America, like this is when they're soliciting for money, they will send you stickers with your name and address on it, asking you to buy those things, and so you feel compelled to buy those things. So introduce yourself by name, give them a gift.
That's very cool. What's the next 6 to 12 months look like for you?
Well, we've got the mastermind in the next couple of days. I've been developing some very special stuff with Shawn Finter, and I'm very excited. That's going to be starting on Sunday. I don't know when you're going to see this, but it's Sunday, the last couple of days of October 2024, and I've prepared some very special stuff, presentation, a lot of this stuff actually. So, I'm not trying to hold anything behind the vest with my arm garters and my mustache. But I'm looking more forward to learning from other people around the world what their problems are, because I eat problems for breakfast. I just love them. They taste delicious. They ask for seconds. And so so I'm just like looking for some new problems to solve and better ways to serve my clients.
Nice. So we're at the stage of the podcast where I ask 5 deep questions, and I love these because it usually catches everybody off guard. What is one life lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life?
One thing that has become very important to me, especially in the last several years, is that I believe that my son's worldview is going to be formed in the first 5 or 6 years of his life, and so I spend as much time as I possibly can with him, and because soon enough he's not going to want me anymore, and so that is just my time with my kid is sacred to me. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's
that's what the first thing that came to mind was.
That is, especially in this day and age, is very, very true. If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Never miss a good opportunity to shut the fuck up. Listening is an art. The more you listen, the more you learn. I'm giving myself advice here too. Like I don't, but yeah, if we ever have a conversation organically, it is likely that I will be asking you a lot of questions. Curiosity is one of those things that I've just never been able to turn off. So I would just, and most of my opportunities have been revealed to me just by listening.
Yeah, I tell people that I do talk a lot, but I listen more. So I really, really listen to everything, and it just gets banked. Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
I wish that something that I wish I understood earlier in life is that my past doesn't predict my future. Ooh. And that my mindset around things like money, things about who my identity, like who I am, what I do, why I do it, can be changed all the time. And it doesn't. I'm not any specific type of person. I'm the person that I am, the person that I want to be. And and I just try to go to bed proud and grateful for the day that I've had, and that's it. One day, I mean, like they say, one day at a time. But it's like I try not to obsess too much over the future. Certainly, I'm learning not to obsess over the past.
Yeah, I pay $150 an hour for a therapist to try and not figure out how not to do that. It's working though. It's working.
Yeah, and therapy. I mean, I've been in therapy for years, and it's been extremely helpful for helping me understand like the different parts of myself. My shrink adopts this philosophy of a internal family, which means that we have different parts of us that are different types of people, and so I wholeheartedly believe in all that.
How do you define success, and has the definition of that changed over time?
Right now, I define success by the time that I spend with my kid, and the value that I provide for my clients. I'm an eat what you kill coach and consultant. So if I don't produce results, then I don't have a job. And so I mean, I'm in the business of tangible results and data. So if I can't justify my fee in 30 days or 60 days, then I don't have a business. So
yeah, I live by
pretty specific.
I live by the rules of like, people lie, numbers don't. Like, you can tell me you have fantastic XYZ, but if I look at your P&L and the P&L is completely off, then you don't have fantastic XYZ.
Incidentally, that's typically how I justify my annual fee. It's just like 6 minutes with a P&L.
Yeah. What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
My legacy is my son. And I look forward to, every day he's growing so fast. He's got literally 40% more neurons than us right now. And he grows so fast. And I just enjoy seeing how he's becoming whoever he is becoming. And that's a delight to see. That's, I guess, personally. For my legacy, I don't know. I think that, I did the math one time, and if I helped reduce the churn rate of bars and restaurants by 1% in the United States, that's 6,600 restaurants a year. And each of those restaurants has 20 to 25 employees. So I would think that would be that's kind of the vision for my goal. And that means that, the future of my business is going to be scaling up the deliverables, scaling down the cost. And you better believe I'm using AI and automation for that.
And one last thing, we've done the deep questions now. One last thing for a GM, an operator, an owner that's out there, and still after listening to this episode is like, I don't think AI will help me. What is that one last piece of advice that you can give them to really start looking at it in a positive light? What's that last piece of advice?
Well, the reality is you already engage in AI a lot. Siri is an AI, for instance. You already engage with AI a lot. It's going to be Minority Report very soon. You can also head to jasonsfreetools.com and see that some of the stuff that I've already prepared for you. Just play around with it. Again, it'll get you 80% there of where you want to go. It's not going to get you all the way. But this attitude of I'm just not an AI person, or I just don't see how this is going to work. I don't want to be crazy. I don't want to be I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you will be irrelevant. It's and this is not me. This is not a hammer looking for a nail. This is the reality of the business. This is it. This is the way it's going. Your POS is going to be AI enhanced. Everything that you do, every technology product that you already use is going to be either augmented with AI or completely replaced by it.
Well, thanks so much for your time, man. That was awesome. It's exactly what I wanted to get at, because I think I still think people are sleeping at the wheel a little bit when it comes to tech in the hospitality industry. I think we're just an industry that sort of we keep POS systems around for 20 years when there's better POS out there. Well, because I know this one. I know how to program it. I'm going to keep this one, even though it's completely out of date and horrible. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of links for everybody who's listening and put that into the bio for the episode when I launch it. And so everybody can go, and if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube right now, there's already a link in the comments that you can go tap on jasonsfreetools.com and check out some of the stuff there. So I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shawn. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll chat to you really soon.
Talk soon.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.